Welcome to Beyond Code Construction Benefits for Louisiana. I am really excited to introduce some very special guests we have at the beginning. First, I'm going to introduce Molly Alexander. She is the State Farm Government Affairs person for y'all in Louisiana, and she is going to introduce our first little brief speaker. Molly?
Hey, Sonia, good morning. And good morning, everybody from State Farm. Like Sonia said, I am your Government Affairs Coordinator, and I'm here today to kick off this very instrumental and important continuing education. But before Sonia and them fill you with so much information, so much valuable information that you can share with your customers, I'm going to first introduce Representative Paula Davis. Paula is, at first, I get to call her my rep. I live in her district. And more importantly, I get to call her my friend. A friend for well over 25 years. Paula and I served at the Louisiana Department of Insurance together. And now she took office. She wants to make a difference in the great state of Louisiana. And she's going to tell you how she's already done that. But, you know, if I look, I'm sitting here looking at Paula's bio, and oh, it's pretty impressive. All the awards, all the things that she's already done since her getting elected in 2015. She served on the insurance committee for us and has been a great partner. But currently, she's actually a chairwoman of our Commerce Committee, where things like building codes come in front of her. And then, you know, the business community thinks she's fabulous. The nonprofit community thinks she's fabulous. I mean, there's so many things in this bio. But there's some couple of things that I know about that aren't in that bio. Paula grew up in Breaux Bridge, where she could not be a servant today. She was raised by a family full of servants' hearts. If you ever have the opportunity to meet her parents, you will quickly understand not only the impact that they make in the great community of Breaux Bridge, but the things that they've done for children, whether it's vaccines or other things all over the world, and the things that they've given to the great state of Louisiana. But while most of us were watching Dad come in and Mom ask, "How was your day, dear?" Usually the conversations didn't circle around embalming or crematoriums. Those were the conversations that Paula had in her house. Not too many people can say, I come from a family of embalmers. So Paula has that claim to fame too. But today she's going to win you over. I can almost guarantee. I will say that dynamite comes in small packages, because she is a dynamite legislator, woman in business, and a dynamite friend. So with that said, oh, and most importantly, she's a dynamite State Farm customer and is a proud one of that too. So without any further ado, my dear friend, Representative Paula Pellerin Davis, will you please welcome this group?
Yay, thank you, Molly. It kind of made me tear up, actually. First of all, it made me tear up when you said 25 years, because I thought we are not old enough to be friends for 25 years, but we are. And second, just mentioning how I got involved in politics. It's something that I never thought I would do. I knew that I loved government, and I loved my civics classes, and I loved my American history classes, but never thought I'd actually run for office. But like Molly said, I grew up with a family that was very, very involved in the community of Breaux Bridge, of St. Martin Parish, and in Acadiana. My dad, my mom were pillars and are still pillars of the community, and are recognized daily for all of their contributions to what they've done to the community. And so I grew up with seeing that in my home. So yes, I did grow up with a lot of talk about funeral business, because that's the business my family was in, and is still in, but also in the insurance business. And so that's how I got to the insurance department, which is where I met Molly. Molly and I worked at the insurance department, basically in a little cubicle together, along with State Representative Chad Brown. And we did something called the Council for Affordable Auto Insurance Rates and Enforcement, or something like that. It was really long. We called it the CARE Council. And that's where I first met Molly, and we call her Molly Cat. And I won't go into why, but it's just kind of funny. So Molly Cat and I worked together on the CARE Council and did lots of research. and we're there together, and we're in the trenches during Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. We were both very involved in the property and casualty insurance side of it. We were very involved in the consumer complaints and consumer help part of it. So we were in the trenches and kind of on the front lines for the Department of Insurance, not only for consumers, but for property and casualty insurers like State Farm, going through that process after Katrina or Rita. So you can surely understand the magnitude of what we went through at the department during that time. It was really overwhelming, but I think, through that tragic, those tragic circumstances comes opportunity. And I think that's what happened in, I think it was roughly 2010 when the IBHS first came out with their Fortified for Safer Living program, and their gold standard and their silver standard and their bronze fortified program, which y'all will hear more about in your class today, I'm sure. But so Molly and I we saw that go through with building codes. Of course, at that time, I was not in the legislature, but I was. Molly and I both worked the legislative process for the Commissioner of Insurance and for the Department of Insurance at the time. So we did pay attention to those issues that were in front of Commerce, especially regarding building codes. So we were very familiar back then, and continue to be now, with the evolution of building codes here in Louisiana. So it was very natural when I became the chair of the Commerce Committee. Well, first I was elected in 2015, decided to run just kind of on a whim. Friends of mine in the legislature convinced me that I should run for office. At first I thought and said, y'all are crazy, you've lost your minds. And then I realized, you know what, this may be my calling, and maybe this is what I'm supposed to do next. And I think clearly in my mind, I've demonstrated to my constituents that I am the right person for the job for them. And I do hold their best interest at my heart, and do the best that I can for my constituents every day. Having said that, when I became chair of the Commerce Committee 2 years ago, State Farm came to me, I guess it was last year, with House Bill 451, which would require incentives for property owners to build to those IBHS standards, and provide for discounts and incentives to build to those standards. And I think it was very fitting. We had not had a major hurricane in a while, and then Laura and Delta came along, and then of course now Ida, which devastated South Louisiana. So I think it was very fitting after Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, and then now with this bill, with House Bill 451, it was the right thing to do at the right time. So hopefully, for those of you in South Louisiana and Southwest Louisiana, you can talk to your policyholders about building to those standards, getting those discounts. And while it may be a little more expensive on the front end to build for construction, on the back end, it surely would be the right thing to do. So I was very happy and honored to carry that bill for State Farm. You really cannot say no to Rodney Braxton or Molly Alexander when they come to you with their smiles. And like I said, they've been very good friends. Rodney has been a good friend for over 25 years as well. And actually we share the same birthday. So we're both Sagittarius. We have that in common. But it's very hard to turn down Molly and Rodney, because you know that when they come to you with a suggestion, with an idea, that it's the right thing to do for the citizens of Louisiana. So I'm very honored that I was able to carry that bill for them and pass it. And hopefully now that it's gone through and it's in law, you can help your policyholders see those savings in the long term by letting them know about the IBHS program and the Gold Standard program. If y'all have any questions for me, feel free to ask. I could talk all day long, but I'd like to open it up for questions if y'all have any. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about this bill. It can be about, whatever you guys want. But also know that in the future, if you do need anything to, as chair of Commerce, it is my duty to, number one, help defend the uniform building codes and this program that goes along with it, but also to continue to strengthen the program. And I'm very grateful to insurers like State Farm, who have spent millions and millions of dollars to help fund the science behind the program. So any further research that is done and what it comes of that, with the suggestions that come from that research, I'm always happy to listen and help pass laws that again strengthen even what we have now. Because again, it's all for the betterment of your policyholders and the citizens of Louisiana.
Thank you so much, Representative Davis. If anybody has questions and you don't have access to video, you can pop them in the chat box. I am going to introduce, we have another little opener I would love to introduce. There is a fellow State Farm agent, Paul Cleveland. He is actually out of Texas, and he is going to share a little bit about what his experience with writing policies for Fortified Homes has been. Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Sonia. Appreciate the intro there. And thanks for everybody for being here and listening to us this morning. Kind of want to walk you through how I got into IBHS and how we sort of discovered this and started writing these policies. When I got into the insurance business back a couple of years ago in 2018, I worked for an agent in Galveston County here in Texas who was from Lake Charles originally. And obviously he had a lot of experience writing policies in hurricane wind risk areas. And we kept on getting, as I'm sure you get, the same sort of peril-based risk information tool response, which says risk is ineligible for State Farm's insurance, refer to underwriting guide for IBHS exception. We had no idea what IBHS exception meant, so we started researching that. I started going home and watching the videos some of the videos that Sonny's going to show you today, watching the exact same ones, and started learning about this process. It took us 2.5 years to crack that code, but we finally started getting them done. And we submitted our first ones about this time last year. And once you sort of understand the process, it is not difficult. It might seem like some big bear at first, but it's not. It's really easy to do. The thing that I would say is the single most important factor in the entire equation is something that Sonia's going to go over a little bit later. It's the evaluator relationship you have. The evaluator in IBHS terms is basically think of them as the wind engineer that goes in there and does all the inspections and the documenting and the conversing with the builder to make sure everything's done correctly. The documentation she's going to go into later too. Pictures are really important. And then obviously that evaluator submits the paperwork for you. From your end, the certificate's generated, you attach it to the app. It's pretty simple. It's not hard at all. You can just set the expectation there's going to be every 5-year re-inspection just to make sure the roof and the structure is still in good shape. Beyond that, for the homeowner, as far as what they see, little to no upfront cost in my experience for them. One particular house that's sort of been the model for what we've done with IBHS had no additional expense on the building of the front end. I think IBHS might tell you it's probably 2% for most houses, but for what we're doing is mostly working with custom home builders, and those people are already building pretty stout houses anyway, and so really all this is just some inspection fees. And so on the front end, most of my customers see a $1,500 to $2,000 engineering fee, and that or evaluator fee, and that takes care of everything. So yeah, it's really low cost. The savings on insurance on our stuff here in Texas is humongous. It's like 25% off the homeowner's policy, which is thousands of dollars. My point being, they make up their investment within a year or two in insurance savings. The really important part for y'all to do, the two parts are evaluator and then relationships with home builders have been key for me. Eventually, if you play this right, this will turn into a thing in which that home builder is spinning all of their business to you and actually using you and our policies to sell more homes for themselves. And it has gotten to the point to where the vast majority of what I write are referrals from home builders now. And it's been extremely lucrative. And this has been a huge deal, and people love this. And the insurance is great. Obviously, we know that their rates are great, shockingly so. And their homes are much better for it. So yeah, this has been a really positive experience, and take what Sonia has to say to heart. It's gonna be worthwhile.
Thank you so much, Paul. If anybody has questions for Paul, you can always contact me later, throw them in the chat. I know that he's going to have to jump here in a little while, but I'm happy to put you in touch with him. So again, welcome everybody to Beyond Code Construction Benefits in Louisiana. And after that great introduction from Representative Davis and Paul Cleveland, I am here to show you this really does not only benefit you, but it benefits your clients. This is basically the best way to build if you have any disasters in your area. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Sonia Sheffield. I am the Technical Outreach Director for Smart Home America. On the call as well is Jasmine Valentine, our project coordinator, and she'll be moderating today and helping you guys with quizzes and such and polls. So our first little poll is, which house would you rather live in, or even better, which house would you rather insure? House A or house B? I know this is just to wake everybody up. Make sure your coffee is working. These houses were built in the IBHS test facility. So, and we're going to talk about what that is. These are actual houses. They were both built to code. One was built beyond code, which is what we're going to talk about. And when wind was thrown at these houses, one of those houses came completely off the foundation. Okay, I'm going to wait a couple more minutes for people to go ahead and answer. And I think that's probably good enough. Jasmine, if you want to go ahead and share that. Okay, so which home would you rather insure? Now, so sometimes people say A, we have one taker. So if you'd rather insure A, that's a big expensive payout on the other end. With B, the house that has no damage, that house, okay, it looks like there might be a little fascia missing on the side. That's not enough. That's going to be, you're not going to meet your deductible there. So that's not going to even be an insurance claim. So we can go ahead and take that down. Thank you again, Jasmine. Okay, so this next is going to be a video. This is video of that same house that was built to the Beyond Code standard next to various houses that were built and exposed to wind. This is the first test, as you can see. There it goes, right off the foundation. This is actually a different house. And here, the house stays in place, but the roof gets blown off. And there is another house. This is actually another house that they didn't know it was going to blow off its foundation, and actually took the camera out with it, which was an expensive mistake. So just a couple of notes. Please use the chat box to ask questions or inform us if you're having any kind of technical difficulties. To receive CE credit, you must attend the entire program and participate. Participation means when we have the review quizzes up, you need to answer the questions in the review quiz. You're not graded on them. It is participation only. You will need a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen for a brief, fun exercise. This class is recorded, and we will take 2 5-minute breaks so everybody can run to the bathroom and grab another cup of coffee. To get your Thinkific certificate for this class, you need to log into Thinkific and then go through every resource. At the bottom of your resource, it will say complete and continue. When you've clicked through all of those, you will automatically get a certificate. The CEs will be we will send those directly to the state of Louisiana for you to get credit for those. So our goals today are to demonstrate that need for Beyond Code construction. We're going to introduce all the terms and methods and what does Beyond Code really mean. We will be sharing resources for your information, things that you can download. If you go to the Thinkific website, those resources are all able to be downloaded, and we will talk about the benefits to you and your clients. So a little background. 64% of homes, that's more than half. So if you look at our home icon, it's the dark color there. 64% of homes are underinsured. So they don't have enough insurance. They're underinsured by an average of 24%. So that means for a $200,000 home, if the home is completely destroyed, if it's a complete loss, that homeowner needs to come up with $48,000. Most people don't have this in the bank. They might not even be able to leverage it. that means that person is not really going to be made whole after a disaster. A whopping 75% of businesses are underinsured. That's a very large number, and they're underinsured by an average of 40%. So if you have a $500,000 business, that's $200,000 that you need to come up with. We all know small business owners, they don't have that kind of money to recover. So Smart Homes vision, our vision, is more resilient communities. We get there by making homes and businesses more resilient. This home is a Habitat for Humanity home. It was built to the Fortified, so beyond code standard. So as we know, Habitat for Humanity, that is a volunteer organization. They are not building huge custom homes. They're building small, affordable workforce housing. This house was built fortified. It was built to the highest fortified standards, built to fortified gold. This home also went through Hurricane Michael, which was a Category 5 when it hit Mexico Beach, Florida in 2018. And you can see the destruction around this home. There were 5 of these homes, and one of them had a loose piece of siding. That's it. These homes were not damaged on the inside. Water did not get inside the roof. They had no claims on any of these homes. These people were able to get back in their houses. They were able to go back to work, and their kids were able to go back to school. They were able to just go on about their business. These are homes in Alabama, and the homes, you can see they look great. They went through the hurricane great, but take a look at the damage on the roofs. And we all know that when you have damage like that, that roof leaks. And when that roof leaks, you have damage inside the house. So even though the house looks fine from the outside, there's probably going to be extensive damage in some of these houses on the inside, which means that homeowners may not even be able to live in it. So like I said at the beginning, we are Smart Home America. So smart home, everybody thinks of a smart home as being a home wired for the internet, or the Ring camera, right? That's a smart camera on the front of your house where you can look on your smartphone and see who's at your front door. But we at Smart Home believe a smart home starts with a home that can resist the wind-driven rain, and the water rising up. So once all of those things are in place and your home can survive the disasters that it's prone to in your area, then it is more affordable to adequately insure. So now you are able to get insurance that makes you whole if a disaster does happen. And after that happens, we can talk about things like energy efficiency and building green and having, those kinds of things in place. And then once all of that is in place, we can add that Ring camera to the front door and have your house wired to the internet. Our job is educating stakeholders and communities. So this is all of the stakeholders that we help to educate and we bring together. And insurance, you guys are really the front line in making resilient communities, because you can give this information to homeowners. Homeowners are notoriously hard to reach, but if they can get discounts, that money talks. So we really depend on insurance agents to help us bring new markets to bear. You and all of our stakeholders are part of this resilient machine. You can see where the start arrow is, it's starting at insurance. And there, just below insurance, below that start arrow is IBHS. And we're going to talk about IBHS next. IBHS is the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. And IBHS is funded by the property insurance industry. State Farm is a member of IBHS. What does IBHS do? Well, they do research on building materials and building methods to see which of those methods work best to resist things like wind, hurricane winds, tornadoes, and those kinds of things. So we can build better homes and businesses so that when disaster does happen, we can recover more quickly. This is actually their test facility in South Carolina. It is a $40 million research facility. Those are 105 6-foot fans that can create winds up to 130 miles per hour. That's where they do their testing. When we saw those houses that were being blown off the foundation, those houses were built inside this facility. IBHS focuses on 4 areas of research: wind, rain, especially wind-driven rain, hail, and wildfire. We're going to talk about the first 3. We will not talk about wildfire today. As of February 1st, there are over 35,000 homes that have a fortified, that's IBHS's beyond code standard. They have a fortified designation. This is a system that has been tested. It's been tested in the real world. So let's back up a little bit and let's talk about building codes, mitigation, and resilience, and how this affects insurance. So let's start with building codes. A building code is just a collection of rules and regulations adopted by a municipality, and it governs how buildings are constructed. And building codes absolutely work. The better the building code, the better the construction, the homes and the businesses are that are built. But crucial to this is enforcement. If you have a good building code, but nobody ever goes out and inspects anything, or no permits need to be pulled, it's not going to be all that effective. These are houses that went through Hurricane Harvey. And you can see, so the numbers, the dates, those are when the house was built. So basically it gives you an idea of what the building code was. So you can see on the very bottom there, that house that was built in 2017, it did pretty well. And you can see that also in the top left. So that house actually did really well. The house is intact. Did it leak? Well, it looks like it had a metal panel roof, and that all blew off, but it looks like the felt might be intact. So it may not have even leaked. You can't really tell from the picture. But you can see just below that 2017 house at the very bottom, it's the one on the far right. That's a house built in 2000. That house is a total loss. There's nothing salvageable from that. I want to also point out on the bottom there was a house from 1970 and a house from 1972. The 72 house is also a total loss, but the house from 1970 was updated in 2008 and it actually did okay. It survived. This is just a simple graph that shows insurance losses. Okay, these are losses from 1980 to 2018. And what I want to point out is that the largest on every year, the largest bar is that green bar, and that is meteorological events. That includes tropical storms, hurricanes, convective storms, that's your tornadoes, and local storms. So you can see that is the big driver of loss, which is why it's a big focus for IBHS. This is a neighborhood that went through that same Category 5 hurricane, okay, Mexico Beach. And you can see the houses, building codes work. Those houses are in good shape. They're not blown down. Their roofs are intact. But what I want to point out is, look at the street. Look at all of the debris out of the street. Because those houses had roof damage and water got inside, these homeowners are still displaced. Their house is still there, and they will be able to move back into it at some point, but they've been displaced because of the huge amount of damage inside their house from the water intrusion. So what do we do about this? Smart Home America, with building officials and other experts, has created a coastal construction code supplement. This is a supplement that can be adopted voluntarily by local codes, and this matches Fortified. Okay, it matches that standard that IBHS has shown to work with hurricanes, tornadoes, high winds, and wind-driven rain. It absolutely works. We have also created an inland construction code supplement that we hope will mimic the successes we've had on the coast further inland. So the next thing we're going to talk about is mitigation. And, in insurance, we all know about mitigation, wind mitigation. Examples that I often see are putting hurricane panels on a house. That is a form of mitigation. So to mitigate literally means to make less severe. So what you're doing when you mitigate something is you're making the potential damage that could happen from a hurricane less severe. So ISO, the Insurance Services Office, they actually rate communities, and that is part of what sets the insurance rate. So they look at a lot of different things, like, do you have fire service? Do you have a fire station? How did that fire station work? All those kinds of things go into determining what the insurance rate is. Well, one part of that is the BSEGS, the Building Code Effectiveness Grading Schedule. And what ISO knows and what has been shown over and over again is that if you have, and this is key, a well-enforced, up-to-date code, those areas demonstrate better loss. So that means less loss. And insurance rates can reflect that. So if you have a more stringent building code that is well enforced, your insurance rates are going to come down because of that. So the traditional paradigm has been when a hurricane comes through or a tornado comes through and blows everything down and there's a lot of damage, we rebuild it as quickly as possible. And the reason for that is people are they don't have places to live. They can't go back to work. Businesses might be closed. A community is at a standstill until those things are back in place. So the pressure has always been to rebuild as fast as possible. And yeah, you can mitigate, you can make it a little bit better because the building codes are going to be better than they were, as we saw in that slide. But we want to introduce a new paradigm where the mitigation is proactive, meaning it happens, it's often called sunny day mitigation. So before the storm comes, we want to have incentives in place for people to mitigate, to make their homes more disaster resistant. This is goal oriented. The goal is that people can get back in their houses after a disaster more quickly, that they're not stuck at a hotel or possibly in another community altogether or in a FEMA trailer for months, years, maybe forever. If they've moved to a different community, sometimes they never come back. It's sustainable because if you're not gutting your house every time there's a hurricane and you lose everything because water's come in through the roof, that's better. I mean, the less stuff that goes in the landfill, the better, right? It is absolutely affordable. You saw those Habitat for Humanity homes were built to the highest fortified level. This is not a super expensive program. And we would love to see it be community-wide because true resilience only happens if that person that can stay in their house can also go back to their job and their kids can go back to school. So I've talked about resilience a lot. So what does the term resilience actually mean? It is just the ability to recover. So if you're not talking about communities and homes and people, if you have like one of those stress balls that you squeeze, when you squeeze it, it comes right back to its original shape. That is resilience. So this is also Mexico Beach. This is not necessarily resilient. Yes, that house survived, but look around that house. That community is not resilient. That person, if what's around that house is indicative of the entire community, that person has no place to go back to work, their kids have no place to go back to school, and their neighbors aren't coming back for a while. That's not really resilience. And it's also not making, a single house a bunker, making it disaster proof. We like to promote individual property resilience as well as community resilience. Resilient communities have a lot of benefits. At the front end, it reduces spending. You think of resilience as being something you invest in, sure, and it's not expensive to invest in. There are very small changes that can make things more resilient, but it reduces spending. Think about all of the things that you're taking out of a house after a hurricane. Like let's say the house is still standing, but your roof leaked, all the carpet, all the furniture, everything that you need to do. Well, who pays for that to be picked up? Your community does. And most communities don't have that money in the bank. They have to get, federal help with that. But if you have far less of that, you are saving money. It also, because people don't have to leave, houses are still standing, it keeps your income tax base and your property tax base in place. Your local jobs still exist. Businesses don't have to close. All of those things mean that your local economy keeps chugging right along. So that may sound like a pipe dream, right? Like that sounds great, but like, how does that really work? Well, there have been a lot of hurricanes that have hit fortified homes. Fortified, like any program, started out small, but it really took off in Alabama. So in September of 2020, Hurricane Sally hit the Alabama Gulf Coast. And it was category 2, it was a high category 2. And we have all lived through hurricanes and we know, well, okay, category 2, depending on where you live. If you're right on the coast, you might evacuate, but if you're living inland, well, you're probably not even going to leave, right? What made Sally really dangerous was Sally only moved 2 to 4 miles per hour, which meant that people sat in the eye wall for 8 hours in some places. So yeah, category 2, it's generally not super dangerous for most people, but if you're sitting in that eye wall for 8 hours, that is a whole different ballgame. So one of the things that made Sally interesting for the purposes of resilience and construction research was nearly 17,000 homes were fortified when Sally hit in that area. And you can see on the map, it shows how they're distributed. So Sally hit kind of on the right side there of all of those homes. So how did those homes do? Now we had other test points, other hurricanes had landed other places and the fortified homes did really well, but this is a lot of fortified homes. So how did they do? Well, 95% of those homes did not have enough damage to make an insurance claim. That's amazing. There were places along the coast that were completely gone. They were wiped away by Sally. But fortified homes, 95% of them had not enough damage to make an insurance claim. And that number is actually going up as we get more information from insurance claims from Sally. We expect it to land around 98% because as more information comes in, the numbers just keep getting better. So we are going to talk a little bit about tornadoes as well. This is actually Moore, Oklahoma, the 2013 F5 tornado. We cannot prevent all damage. Like I said, fortified is not making a disaster-proof home. We're talking about disaster resistance. But a tornado, just like a hurricane, is most intense in the center, but as you go out, you have damage that can be prevented by fortified. All of this damage here can be prevented, completely prevented by using a fortified building standard. So just a little comparison. So that was an F5. This is an EF scale versus the Hurricane Saffir-Simpson scale. So an EF0 is about a category 1 hurricane. So IBHS engineers believe that we can completely eliminate damage from an EF0 or 1. So that's up to category 2 hurricane, and really reduce the damage up to a category 3 hurricane. That's a EF2 tornado. And we saw, a lot of homes do better at higher rates. Now this hasn't been tested in the tornado area yet. This is that path. This is the EF0 and EF1 areas. And remember, IBHS believes that damage can be completely eliminated. This is the Moore, Oklahoma tornado. This is its path. This is the affected area. In the EF2 area, they believe that the damage can be minimized. So now we're in 3. So you're going to have significantly more damage, even with a fortified home. And we do absolutely encourage people who live in these big tornado prone areas do need to try to have safe rooms. There's the EF4 and 5. So these two little dots are the EF5, thank goodness. But tornadoes, like hurricanes, are named at their highest strength. Hurricanes are named at the highest strength when they hit, but tornadoes are always over land. So it's just whatever the highest strength is. So this is an area that is going to be damaged. You know, hopefully you have a safe room and that helps. This is the EF4, 3. So this is the path of the tornado where you're still going to see significant damage, but this area will be minimized. In this whole area, there will be no damage. That's making the path of destruction much more narrow. Okay. And just a little reminder, this is from Oklahoma. So the intensity of tornadoes between 1950 and 2016. I want to point out, we hear a lot, just like we hear, you know, tropical storms don't usually make like big national news like, you know, Ida did, but it doesn't mean that they don't do damage. Surely if you live on the shore, they do damage and they can create, you know, roof damage and leaks and such like that. So we tend to think of those tornado events and those big EF5s or maybe EF4s, but that's actually a very small proportion, even in a place like Oklahoma. So EF0s and 1s, so remember, these are the tornadoes that IBHS thinks we can completely eliminate the damage from. That is actually, if you add those two together, that is 74% of all tornadoes. Okay, so that's a big chunk of them. If you add the EF2s in, if you add those EF2s in where we think we can minimize, you know, really get rid of a lot of the damage, that's another almost 19%. You're up to 92.9% of tornadoes. That's almost 93%. That is not an insignificant number. So you are still really reducing damage and therefore reducing claims. So let's do a quick review. So IBHS, they do the research, they make the recommendations for how to build and how to use materials. We are Smart Home America. Our job is to take this information and bring it to you. We educate the stakeholders in the community. Building codes are absolutely critical, but they are the minimum standard in a community. You could always build beyond code, which is what this whole class is about going beyond that code. Mitigation and resilience affects claims. It affects insurability and rates. So a house that may not have been able to be insured can be insured. It'll be able to be insured at a better rate, and you're going to have fewer claims on it. We can absolutely create better outcomes. So now we're going on to our first quiz. Jasmine, if you can pop that review quiz 1 up there, and I'm going to read the questions, and then when everybody's done, I'll go through what the answers should be. Uh-oh. Hoping that that quiz is in there. If it's not, we will. There we go. Excellent. Review quiz 1. Thank you so much. Okay, true or false? Smart Home America provides grant money to insurance providers to help their clients re-roof. True or false? When a new house is built to code, you know you are getting you're building to the industry's highest standard. True or false? Communities must wait for a catastrophic storm to wipe away existing buildings in order to benefit from new resilient construction methods. Okay, so just a reminder, to receive CE credits, you do need to participate. So go ahead and answer the quizzes. It is not degraded. We're strictly looking for participation. It's okay if you guess incorrectly. Okay, go ahead and Let me wait one more second. Okay, go ahead and end that poll and we'll go through it. Okay. So Smart Home America provides grant money to insurance providers to help their clients re-roof. Oh, how we wish we did. Unfortunately, we are a small nonprofit organization and nothing would make me happier than calling each and every one of you up and saying, hey, I've got money that I can give you for clients who can't afford to re-roof but need to re-roof. And now we can get them a great insurance policy. Unfortunately, that's not the case. We are educators. We're bringing you the information, and we're unable to provide grant money at this time. When a new house is built to code, you know you are building to the industry's highest standards. This is actually false. Industry standards, codes, even when codes are absolutely stringent and great, they are the minimum local standard, and codes are going to vary from municipality to municipality. But that is the minimum standard for that area. Communities must wait for a catastrophic storm to wipe away existing buildings in order to benefit from new resilient construction methods. That is false. So that everybody got that one right. You can absolutely do mitigation ahead of time. Yes, if you could not get to the poll, Josh, you can go ahead and answer in the chat, put it in the chat, even though we've already gone through it, and it'll count. Okay, now, if everybody could get their piece of paper and their pen. Oh, wait. Started before I wanted it to. What we want everybody to do, and this is just a fun little exercise. Everybody get your pen and your paper, and we're going to have 15 seconds to draw your dream house. Okay? It's okay if it doesn't look good. Ready, set, go. Okay, stop, put your pen down. Okay, so if you do have a camera and you can turn it on, and I have a green screen, so hey, mine worked today, look at that. So that's my dream house. Look, I thought you could see. Okay, thank you, Gabriella. So everybody's dream house looks, you know, it's just a little box, right, with a roof on it. Why we do that exercise is to point out that what you drew were the walls and the roof, okay? That's all you got down to. When you're shopping for your house, when you are building a new house, those are not the things that you think about, right? You might think about kind of what it looks like on the outside, but what you're really thinking about is, where is the house if you're buying? Like, is it close to school? Is it close to work? You're thinking about, does it have the kind of countertops I like? Am I going to have to renovate the kitchen? You're thinking about, does it have the tub I want? I really want a garden tub. Or I really don't want a garden tub, but I want a shower with like extra shower heads. These are the kinds of things people think about when they think about their dream home. This is not what IBHS is concerned about. This is not what we're talking about. We are talking about those walls and that roof to protect all of those things you want in your dream house, to keep that house in place, to keep it on its foundation, to protect what's inside of it, so you can get back in your house after a disaster and start living your life again. So we are going to have a 5-minute break, and I will see everybody back here in 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the advantage of beyond code construction, and I've mentioned fortified. So what is fortified exactly? So the dictionary definition of fortified is to make something stronger, to enhance it in some way. If you've read any kind of history where you talk about fortified cities, you know, they have big walls around them, or a fortified bridge. These are things that were protective back in the time when, you know, you had to protect your city from marauders. But we also use it when we talk about fortified breakfast cereal. Those things have extra vitamins and minerals that are good for you. And fortified wine has more alcohol, something that helps protect it on its long journey originally. So what it means for construction is that IBHS does research. You saw that big testing facility. They do research, and they take what they find and put it into action. And they have made it into a beyond code building standard that can be used. So what is that fortified standard? Well, it is a voluntary program. Even places that have building codes that mimic fortified, so they're doing everything for fortified, being part of the fortified program itself is voluntary. It is validated by a third party. So basically what you're doing is you're saying, this house we know was built to the standard because here is the documentation, the pictures, the receipts, whatever is needed. Fortified also has geographically appropriate standards. They have a high wind standard that's inland, and then the hurricane standard. So hurricane standard is any place that has winds that can get up to 115 miles. It's greater than 115 miles an hour. So any place on the coast. It offers 3 different levels: roof, silver, and gold, and we'll talk about that. Each of the levels builds on the level before it. So if you have a fortified gold house, it also has a fortified roof and has all the elements of fortified silver. And really, all of these levels can be achieved at any price point. They are affordable. And over now 35,000 homeowners are enjoying that peace of mind. So let's back up a little bit and talk about, okay, we're talking about fortified home. I have mentioned businesses can be fortified as well, but today we're focusing on fortified home. So what does that mean? What is eligible? Single family detached homes, duplexes are eligible, townhomes, and the definition of a townhome is usually you have 3 to 4, sometimes they're a little bit bigger than that, but you walk in, you own what's on the ground floor, whether it be a garage and you live over top of it, or you walk in on the bottom floor up to the roof. So each person owns from the roof down to the floor. So nobody is living on top of each other. Townhomes are eligible for fortified home, and manufactured homes are actually eligible for fortified homes. There are a couple caveats with that. It has to be built after 1994 and be wind zone, HUD wind zone 3 rated and permanently attached to a foundation. And that is key. So property types not eligible, any home on a dry stack foundation. So this is what you often see with manufactured homes. You see concrete blocks or concrete piers, and the home is just sat on it. That pier is not attached to anything on the ground. It's not sitting on concrete with a footer. There's no rebar going up into it. And the house is literally just sitting on it. It's not attached in any way. That is a dry stack foundation. If you had a manufactured home that sat on a concrete pad where you have those concrete blocks with rebar and concrete in them, and then it's strapped to the manufactured home, good to go. That's a permanent foundation. So no dry stack foundations. Mixed use buildings, commercial buildings are not eligible for fortified home. They are eligible for fortified commercial. Multi-unit residential condominiums and apartments, where you have people living on top of each other, 2 or 3 floors of residence, those are actually eligible for fortified multifamily, but they are not eligible for fortified home. So this is just to show you how fortified has taken off over the last couple of years. You see that this chart starts at 2011, and there's just a couple of, homes. And I want to also point out at the top there is gold, fortified gold. Remember we talked, there's 3 different levels. And at the bottom, that green is fortified roof. In the middle is a little sliver of silver. There's not that many silver. And we can talk about why that is. But as time has gone on, more and more fortified homes. So in 2020, there were 7,282 unique designations. So quite a few homes were designated in 2020. So remember I said there were 17,000 fortified homes that were, threatened by Hurricane Sally. That was in 2020. So as people were recovering from Sally and they walk out and they look around in their neighborhood and they say, hey, Joe's house has no damage. Like my house I can't live in. I'm having to take all the carpeting out of, Marty's house over here. He's got damage. He's living in his camper. Why does Joe's house have no damage? Well, Joe re-roofed his house to the fortified standard. After that happened, there was a huge demand for fortified housing and re-roof. And in March of 2021, over 1,200 designations just in March happened because people looked around and said, I want a roof that doesn't get damaged like that. So fortified versus traditional building codes. So traditional building codes focus on life safety, and we saw after Hurricane Harvey, they absolutely work. The better the building code, the better the house does. And the idea is that the building survives, right? So if you look at these houses on the beach, these are houses that went through Sally, they're all there, they all survived. Okay, nothing is a total loss. However, the house on the far left is a fortified house. It's a fortified gold house. It was built to fortified. Fortified focuses on property protection as well, which is why it reduces risk so much. So the building not only survives, but the idea is that it's reusable. So not only is your property protected, but you can get back in the house, you have a place to live, you can go back to work, and life can return to normal much more quickly after a disaster. These other houses on the right, you can see one of them has pretty severe roof damage. Probably everything inside that house needed to be taken out and put at the street. So we said there were 2 geographic appropriate standards, hurricane and high wind. There you see them. Each of them has 3 levels, roof, silver, and gold. You can see it's a little bit different from side to side. We're going to focus on hurricane today. For hurricane, you're not just having the roof, you add that attic ventilation system with that. For silver, this is adding your damage amplifiers, and I'll talk about what that means. It's gables, attached structures, garage doors. Attached structures are porches and carports that are attached to the house, and chimneys. But for hurricane, you're also adding openings, which are your windows and doors. So those need to have hurricane protection. And for fortified gold, to all of that, you're adding it says CLP, that is the continuous load path. And I'll explain what that is. It's an engineered load path. But for hurricane, you're also adding design pressure rating for those windows and doors. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means. So let's do a quick review of fortified home hurricane. So for the roof, for fortified roof, you're keeping that roof on and the water out. And that is key, that the water needs to stay out of the roof. We have an enhanced sealed roof deck and a high performing wind rated cover. For silver, you're going to add, protecting those damage amplifiers that we talked about, and you're protecting your openings, your windows and doors against debris impact. You're securing everything better to the house. And for gold, you're going to add, again, that continuous load path, an engineered continuous load path, and protecting openings against high pressures by having them design pressure rated. A hail supplement is something that can be added to either high wind or hurricane. We're going to talk about hail briefly today. If you want more information about hail, please do let me know. So these are houses that were affected by hurricanes. This is some pretty typical sources of damage. I mean, this is what we see after every hurricane, right? So I'm going to start in the center. Those two problems would be fixed by having a fortified roof, not fortified gold, just a fortified roof. So on the center left, you have a house where the roof deck has just completely come off. So the hurricane winds were strong enough, it blew the deck, not just the roof, but the whole deck is off. I mean, I'm sure that house is not salvageable at all on the inside. On the center right, this is metal panels put over asphalt shingles, and there's all kinds of research that shows that does not work. It doesn't hold up to wind. Hurricanes tend to pull those metal panels right off, and those roofs do tend to leak as well. Fortified does not allow 2 layers of roofing. You have to go all the way down to the deck. You need to re-nail that deck. So you see the one in the center left, that deck wouldn't have blown up because it would be re-nailed. It'd be stronger. And you can also remove rotten decking when you're putting metal panels over top of shingles. You don't have any idea what the decking looks like underneath that. So that's not allowed. On the far left, you have the gable of a house is completely blown out. That is covered by silver. So remember, that's your damage amplifier. So imagine when your gable blows out like that, what kind of damage you're going to see in the rest of the house. That's why it's called a damage amplifier. If the weak point is damaged, then everything else gets far more damage because of it. On the far right is a wall that has just been blown out in the house, and that is something that is covered by gold. So my guess is that a window or door was breached by the hurricane, and that's why that wall blew out. So it would be doubly covered by gold. You'd have the design pressure rated windows and doors, you'd have the hurricane panels, and you would have it strapped so that the wall can't blow out. So all of the research that IBHS has done has shown time and time again that damage starts at the roof. The roof cover, so your shingles, your metal panels, and the soffits and the fascia, which are the underneath part, your eaves, that's where the damage starts. That's the first place. Then your wall coverings, and then we go back to the roof. The roof sheeting, that's your decking, and the roof structure itself. So you might start losing more parts of your roof. And once that happens, the whole house is going to collapse in on itself. But it starts at the roof, which is why fortified roof is the most fundamental part of this. So one of the things that we know when we talk to homeowners is that homeowners don't know what's on their roof. They don't know the importance of their roof. I mean, why would they know this? So this is IBHS went out in South Carolina, where their research facility is, and they did a man on the street interview where they interviewed just people that they found on the street about what is on their roof.
What is on your roof? Shingles.
Like general roof, I mean, I don't see anything special.
I don't know.
My grandmother had shingles. I know it's genetic.
Protect from
Weather.
the rain, weather, you know.
This sounds like a trick question. This is a trick question, right?
This is not a trick question.
Keep the roof dry.
I don't know, I feel like divert heat or something.
False. False.
True. True.
False.
The answer is true.
I go false.
Is she always right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I heard like 25 to 30 years.
I think probably like 4 years.
Depends on where you are.
10 to 15 years.
It depends on where you live.
10 to 30 years is what they're supposed to last.
I think I would get gypped on my shingle guy.
80 miles per hour.
110.
I don't think I'm even close to the strength of a shingle. I would think that I can beat a shingle in like an arm wrestle.
There are 3 things to consider when installing a new roof. If you want a stronger, better roof, check out Fortified Roof. Second, the optimal time to install is during spring or summer. And lastly, you have a choice when it comes to what is on your roof. For more, follow us on social media at Disaster Safety using the hashtag What's on Your Roof. It's a stress ball.
Bro, dude, I got a stress ball, bro.
Okay, so again, the importance of the roof. Roof-related damage is responsible for between 70 to 90% of total losses in any given year. Up to 90%. So some years, the roof-related damage is 90% of loss. Roofs routinely experience damage from high wind, from hails, from rain. So that's why that roof is so important, and we need to start with the roof. So we're going to go through each level of Fortified. We're going to focus on Fortified Home Hurricane. So the first is that Fortified roof, and that is the roof and the attic ventilation system. The attic ventilation system needs to be high wind rated. So anything put, whether it's a wind turbine, whether it's a ridge vent, all needs to be high wind rated and installed as the wind rate for the wind rated instructions. There are 3 major parts to putting on a fortified roof. The first is nail it down to keep the roof on. So remember I said you can't have 2 layers of roofing. You have to take all the roofing layers off down to the deck, and you need to re-nail the deck, and you need to use ring shank nails. Ring shank nails double the amount of pressure it takes to pull off your deck. So it helps to keep everything in place. Ring shank nails cost about $100 on the average house, $100, $150. So that is an upgrade. The second part is sealing the deck to keep the water out. So when you're sealing the deck, you're covering those little gaps. So when you have your plywood and there's little gaps between the plywood, you're sealing, you're putting that roof deck tape. That's a 4-inch wide tape that's stuck down on the seams, so the water can't get in those gaps. And if you have a house that has dimensional lumber, so like 1-bys, there are other methods to seal those types of roofs, because you're not going to use tape every 6 inches on that. There's a peel and stick roofing, and there's actually a double layer of felt that works as well. The last basic thing that you need to do is locking it in. So you can see on that picture, on that fascia there, you have that drip edge. There's metal hanging down there. Well, that metal comes up over the top of the roof, and it is nailed down over top of your felt or whatever is up there to keep it in. So if you do lose a shingle on the edge, the thing that's protecting your roof deck is being held down by that drip edge. So next, I'm going to scroll to a video. It is something that was done. It's a research video. A house was built in the test facility in South Carolina. This is a duplex. The only difference between these 2 sides, the only difference in this case, is one side has roof deck tape to seal the roof deck. That's the only difference. As you can see, this is mimicking Hurricane Florence, the winds were, and they had 8 inches of rain per hour, and that is what they threw at this. It rained 8 inches of rain per hour, just like Hurricane Florence. They have a computer that can simulate, the direction and the speed of the wind and where the rain was coming from. That's why the turntable moves to simulate the direction of the rain. So those little gaps, how much water do they let in? Well, it turns out they let in a lot. At 8 inches per hour, this house was getting about 7 bathtubs worth of rain in between those little gaps. And you can see it's just pouring into the inside of the house. That little gap is letting that much water in. So what does that mean? What does that mean for the homeowner? What does it mean for your claims? This is what it looks like inside afterwards. There's insulation everywhere. Everything is soaking wet. The carpet is soaking wet. the furniture is soaking wet and the drywall has collapsed, the ceilings have collapsed. Nobody can live here. That's the other part of it. This is the other side, and take a look at the insulation on the floor. That insulation was on the floor from when they pulled down the attic steps to look in the attic to see how much rain they had. This side, somebody can walk into. They can have breakfast at that table. They can sleep in the bed. So they had outside adjusters come in and estimate the cost. And this was in 2011, the test was, but it's been adjusted up to 2020. The roof damage, I mean, they both had roof damage. They both had damage. The roof damage on the side that had the roof deck tape was $6,000, just over $6,000. On the other side, we had all the damage on the inside as well. That damage estimate was over $19,000. That's a big difference in damage. But what it doesn't take into account is that homeowner now has no place to live. They can't live there. They're going to have to find alternative housing. And depending on their situation, do they drive further to work? Are they able to get to work? Did their children ride the bus and now they're not in the school district anymore, so they have to drive them, if they have a car, to school? That is not included in that damage estimate. This was actually a test that was done in 2017, same sort of test. I don't need to show you another video, it's basically the same thing, but this is the inside. One side, the house that does not have the steel roof deck, that's not livable. The other side, you can sit down on that couch, read the newspaper, and have a cup of coffee. There's nothing wrong. You can totally live in that side. So when it comes to minimizing damage from high winds and rain, we absolutely know what to do, and we know little things make a big difference. So these are some of the little things. So those nails, those are those ring shank nails. It's about $100 to upgrade to ring shank nails. The roof deck tape, that's what was over those seams. It's between $500 and $700 on an average house. So now we're under $1,000 for a house that's not going to leak during the next hurricane. That's a deal. The other thing that they're showing there is a hurricane tie to help hold your roof on. And those are, I mean, that one that they're showing there is about 25 cents. I mean, yes, you don't have one for the house, you have them for every rafter, but it's still, we're not talking about a lot of money. So let's talk briefly about adding a hail supplement. So to add a hail supplement, you need to have a hail rated roof covering. So you have steep slope rated, you have low slope rated. So you need to make sure that whatever is being put on the house is rated correctly for the type of roof. Now, most homes are not going to have low slope unless, like, sometimes their porch is real low slope. If they have skylights, the skylights need to be impact rated. And if they have solar panels, the solar panels also need to be impact rated. But I want to draw your attention to asphalt shingles. There has been a big problem with asphalt shingles and not performing to being hail resistant like they're marketed. So IBHS actually did testing on these shingles to determine which ones actually work. And all of these shingles that are on this page were hail shingles, okay? As you can see, they're not all the same. So to get the hail supplement, the shingles that are used must be excellent or good. They cannot be the two bottom ones, the two marginal ones. And so yes, not all shingles have been tested. You can only use the ones that have been tested and have been shown to be excellent or good by IBHS to get that hail supplement. So you can be sure if you are giving somebody a hail discount, you can feel much more comfortable that their shingles will do much better. So steep slope impact ratings on shingles. For shingles, it's got to be the IBHS rating. For clay tiles, clay and concrete tiles and metal panels, they have their own rating system, and it has it listed there, FM 4473 They have to be class 4 for the tiles, and then the UL 2218 class 4 for the metal panels. So, okay, we've gone over the fortified roof system. So the next system is fortified silver. And this is the damage amplifier. So the openings, your windows and doors, gables, attached structures, garage doors, and chimneys. So let's talk about that for a second. So these are the different systems. Gable ends, so that is the peak, that wall is vulnerable because it's higher, and almost all gables have a break in the middle. So they, build the wall up to a certain point and it's got a flat spot, and then they build the gable on top of it. So that's a weak point in the structure, which is why they need to be reinforced for silver. Chimneys are often built, stuck on top of a roof, and nailed down to the roof. That's going to get blown off in a hurricane. I mean, we have all seen it with the chimney laying, in the neighbor's yard. Here for fortified, they need to be strapped, have some kind of hurricane strapping down to the rafters below. Okay, so that they'll be able to stay better. Attached structures, your porches and carports. If those porch columns or carport columns, that's actually the weak point. If those get blown out by a hurricane, that's going to pull off wherever it's attached to the house, that becomes a weak point and becomes a place that wind can get in. Garage door failures, again, wind can come in and create havoc inside. We're going to look more closely at garage doors. Can really create damage. And the same thing is with windows and doors. So in a hurricane zone where you can be sitting in those high winds for hours at a time, window and door failure allows that wind to get inside the house and create pressure inside the house and do more damage. So for silver, you're required to have hurricane panels, and that is, they have to be what they call a tested and approved system. It cannot be plywood. It's got to be hurricane shutters, either the metal or the fabric shutters. So let's focus. We're just going to focus on two aspects of this. We're going to look at garage doors, and you can see in this house, but when the garage door blew out, the back wall blew out. And this is going to be a video, and the beginning part is just like an animation of what can happen. But at the end, there is a video of a house that had a garage door failure at the test facility. And I want you to just pay attention to that at the end, and you can see what happens. As you can see, when that garage door failed, that whole wall blew out. I mean, it's the craziest thing. It's flapping in the breeze with the windows still installed and everything. So garage doors are important. Wind-rated garage doors. You need to have a wind-rated garage door that's installed correctly. We're going to also look at attached structures. So attached structures, basically your porches and your carports. You need that porch column, it needs to be attached to the foundation. And then at the top, it needs to be tied with hurricane straps or some kind of strapping to the beam that it touches. And then the rafter that's touching that beam as well also needs to have some kind of hurricane tie or strap. So this next video is going to show a common carport, just a standard carport, and how it fails at 80 miles per hour. That is an EF0 or category 1 hurricane. And then the next one where it's been fortified, they have the wind is higher. It's an EF1 tornado or category 2 hurricane. And we'll see what the difference is. So it makes a huge difference in how they perform. So we've gone through roof and silver. So let's go to the last level, which is fortified gold. And that is the continuous load path, the engineered continuous load path, and the design pressure rating for openings. So that design pressure rating, basically windows and doors have to have been tested to say how much pressure they can take. And on windows, if you've ever been in a new house or had new windows put in, they have a sticker on them. That information is usually on that sticker. And with doors, sometimes you have to go to the manufacturer to get the information, so you need receipts. This is why for the Fortified program, all of this is verified and documented. So it's done by the evaluator, which we'll get in later, and sometimes the contractor. So let's talk a little bit about a continuous load path. What is a continuous load path? And this is just a brief video to kind of break it down.
Properly tying a house together to create a continuous load path will make it much more resistant to both uplift and horizontal wind forces during high wind conditions, as shown here. The roof must be connected to the walls. The upper walls must be attached to the lower walls. The bottom story must be connected to the foundation. The sill plate, which runs horizontally along the bottom of the walls, can be attached to the foundation using anchor bolts with oversized washers or other metal connectors. Note the large strap at the corner that anchors the wall studs directly to the foundation. This provides a critical connection at the ends of the wall. The bottom of the top wall must be secured to the top of the wall below. The wall studs are connected to the sill plate, which runs horizontally along the bottom of the walls. Again, note the large strap at the corner. This provides a vital connection between the end of the wall above and the end of the wall below. Metal connectors are used to attach the roof framing to the top plate, which runs horizontally along the top of the walls. It is important to make sure that the metal connectors from the roof structure to the top plate and from the top plate to the studs are on the same side of the wall, as shown here. All exterior walls and the roof need to be covered with structural panels that can be made of plywood or oriented strand board, for example. Be sure to include sheathing on areas around openings for windows and doors. These panels greatly increase the strength of the house and will keep it standing strong when high winds blow.
Okay, so as you can see, a load path is just that connection from the house to the foundation, in every place where you have two pieces of wood meet, that needs to have a connector. So let's do a quick review. We know that damage progression begins with the roof, and if we can make the roof stronger, and Fortified does double the strength of a typical roof, we can prevent a lot of damage. There are 3 designations: roof, silver, and gold, and each designation builds on the one before it. Okay, we're on to quiz 2. And Jasmine, if you can put that quiz up. Thank you. True or false? To be designated fortified gold, a building must first meet the roof and silver levels of designation. And true or false, a strong roof is the most important variable to preventing damage to a home during a high wind event. So we'll give everybody a couple of minutes to answer. Looks like everybody has answered. You go ahead and end that and share it, please. Excellent. Thank you so much. To be designated fortified gold, a building must first meet the roof and silver levels of designation. This is true. Because the roof is so incredibly important, they all need to be roof. And this way, each level is stronger than the last one and includes everything from the one before. Number 2, a strong roof is the most important variable to preventing damage to a home during a high wind event. This is true, which is why we absolutely start with roof and go up from there. Okay, thank you so much. Okay. We are going to have another 5-minute break, and we will wrap up with some testimonials and some mitigation information for Louisiana. I'll see everybody back here in 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everybody. So we have talked about fortified and its importance. So we're going to meet some homeowners who had fortified homes and see some examples of how homes did during Ida. So first, these are homes that went through Sally. And the house in the center has a fortified roof. These homes were not built to the fortified standard. This is just a fortified roof put on this home. This is in Orange Beach, Alabama. This is not on the beach, obviously. It's inland a little bit. But these houses went through that eye wall of Sally. The home in the middle had no damage on it. As you can see, the houses on either side, and you can see the campers in the driveways. That's where people are living, okay? This is the beach, and we've seen this picture already, but that house on the far left, that house was built fortified gold. So that is a house that was built from the ground up to the fortified standard. It wasn't retrofitted, and it had no damage from Sally, even as close to the water as that is. So remember that first house in the neighborhood that had the fortified roof? This is the family that lives there, and let's listen to what they have to say.
You know, one of the biggest blessings that I've been able to see is myself not having any damage because I have a fortified roof and I didn't have the need for tarps and I didn't have the water and storm damage. As I've been able to use my time that I had when I would be working on my house to help others. And that's one of the biggest things people need right now is help. You know, knocking on doors and meeting some of your neighbors for the first time saying, hey, what can I do to help? And, you know, putting tarps up and taking carpet and furniture to the road. I've been able to, me and my family, we've been able to help others out because we didn't have any damage. So definitely feel blessed.
And as you notice, as you drove down the street, all the stuff at the street, yeah, those houses were still standing, but no, but they can't live in their houses because of the damage from the water intrusion on the inside. Now, those houses were relatively new, so I definitely wanted you to see this testimonial from this homeowner who has an older home that has been retrofitted with a fortified roof.
It really works. People said it sounded like a train, but I didn't hear anything. I was confident that my roof was gonna hold up, and it really, no shingles or anything fell off my roof. It was just like nothing had never happened to it. But there's people that didn't have a fortified roof. Their shingles came off. And that made me feel very blessed to have a fortified roof.
We can see that sunny day mitigation, that retrofitting absolutely works. So let's look at some pictures from Ida. This is a new home. This is a fortified gold home that was built on Grand Isle. As you can see, it had no damage. It went through, you know, the center of Ida. You can see behind it how some other structures fared. They didn't fare very well. This home had no damage. It's actually a duplex. It's hard, you can't see from this angle, but it's actually divided. So there is an elevator shaft, and as you go up, you can go to either side. This is where a lot of electric linemen lived because there was no damage. They were absolutely able to live there. Of course, you know, no running water and no power at the time, but as things, it was still a place to live. You had a roof over your head. If you have a generator, you can have power. It absolutely, fortified works. These are houses in the 9th Ward. The house in the center has a fortified roof. And as you can see, it had no damage. No damage from Ida at all, none. So this is a home, this is not a new home. This is home just has a fortified roof. And this is, we did not talk about fortified commercial today. This is multifamily housing. So these houses are a 1/4 mile apart. They both went through Ida. As you can see, the one on the left fared very poorly. those people don't have any place to live. And even you can see in the background, though, that house is more, that building is more intact, but look at the roof damage. So much water has gotten in that they're having to take everything out of these houses. You cannot live there. On the right, this was a new project. It was actually not complete yet when Ida rolled through. So they hadn't opened them yet. And they were fortified. They're fortified gold multifamily. So how did Ida set them back? So as we all know, time is money. So when Ida rolled through, normally something under construction like that, you're talking about rolling back for months to do repairs. 3 weeks, there was a 3-week delay for opening these to have people be able to live in them. Fortified works. And the federal government knows it works. The national standard that the federal government uses is not called fortified because they're not allowed to use private market terms. It is called P as in Paul 804. That standard, that their high wind standard mirrors fortified, and they encourage rebuilding. FEMA, HUD, USDA, all encourage that. And the SBA, the Small Business Administration, not only encourages it, but if you build to that fortified, if you retrofit to that fortified, they will give you 20% more money because they know it works. Nonprofits who build in your area and other areas along the Gulf Coast have started using fortified. Habitat for Humanity does. SBP started out as the St. Bernard Project. All of the houses that they build are fortified. And Team Rubicon, which is the ex-military, retired military group that does a lot of disaster recovery, they also build to fortified. So we've talked about this and hopefully you're all sold on it. So so now what? What do we do? So let's talk about the fortified designation process. The first thing that you need is a fortified evaluator. A fortified evaluator is licensed by IBHS. They have to pass a test and they have to submit information that they have insurance on their vehicle and on their work. They have to submit that before they can go out and do evaluations for fortified, and they are independent. Only a licensed fortified evaluator can submit a house or a project to IBHS for designation. They work with fortified home only. Fortified commercial is run totally differently. So this is for fortified home. Because each agent is independent, their rates are going to vary. You want to have an agent that you feel comfortable with, that you have a good relationship with, and they will refer people to you and you can refer people to them. So the designation process. So first thing, you get that evaluator, right? And then you're going to choose your roofer or your builder. Your evaluator is going to work with that person. Now, some roofers and builders have an evaluator that, especially as things pick up in the market, they might have somebody they already work with. Once you have those two things in place and everybody knows that we're doing a fortified retrofit or build here, you're going to re-roof your house, you're going to build. And the fortified evaluator is going to document all kinds of things. They're going to work with your contractor, make sure they're documenting some things they need to document. And all of this information is going to be gathered up and sent to IBHS, and they're going to verify everything and then give a designation. So absolutely critical to the success of fortified home is that documentation. It's usually photographs, but it also can include labels on materials, data sheets, testing reports, and the like, and compliance forms. That's what's pictured there. And those are forms that your contractor needs to fill out, and your evaluator can help them with that. So once the evaluation is done, that's an evaluator taking a picture of an existing roof. That's not a new roof. IBHS, it's all going to be submitted to IBHS. They will review it and they will give a designation. And that's what the designation, that's what the certificate, the paper certificate looks like. A certificate is good for 5 years. To be redesignated, IBHS sends out a reminder. The homeowner can contact any evaluator. It does not need to be the one who did the original evaluation. It can be any evaluator. They are going to document the home for any changes and modifications. All of that information is sent to IBHS. They verify it. They actually compare the first time the home was submitted, they look at those pictures and then they look at the new pictures and they say, okay, was there an addition put on? Has the roof changed? And this is one of the lists they go down. So what makes a home ineligible for redesignation? Additions that are constructed without the evaluator involved, because additions always touch the roof and you can't fortify half a roof. Enclosing porches or carports, depending on how it's done and what level. So if you're at gold, you absolutely need to have your evaluator involved. If it's roof, it's always good to ask. Roofing, re-roofing, or repairing without an evaluator. If your repair was not done to fortified standards, your roof is no longer fortified. Replacing doors and windows. If you have a fortified gold house where that design pressure matters, remember we talked about the design pressure rating of windows and doors, and you put a new window in, you better have all that information to show that that is still the design pressure rated. Adding a doggy door. So if you have a design pressure rated door, you have a gold home, you have a design pressure rated door, and you cut a hole in it, it's no longer design pressure rated. So if you have a gold house, and this is only for gold, and you have a doggy door that you put in your house, you will not be able to get your recertification at gold, your redesignation. It will drop down to silver. Just, forewarned is forearmed. Installing solar panels without an evaluator present, also because you're touching the roof. So who can do the work of the fortified, roofing and contracting? Any contractor, home builder, or roofer can do that. But they must work with an evaluator. You can find certified roofers on the IBHS or Smart Home America website. Okay, so those certified roofers, you do not have to use a certified roofer, but a certified roofer they're not going to have their hand held. They're going to know exactly what to do to get through the process. I want to also show fortifiedwise.org. That is IBHS's website. And the only reason I'm pointing you in that direction, that is where the roofers can take classes and your evaluator gets his classes, but they also have some free courses. If you're interested, or you think that you have a roofer that might be interested, or somebody who might want to be an evaluator, they can take these free courses, or you can take them to take a look and see if you're interested. So now let's say somebody says to you, I built a new home, or I put a roof on and it's fortified. I don't have the paperwork yet, or they never gave me a certificate. Okay, so you don't have this piece of paper. How do you determine, is this the case? Is this for real? So first I want to point that little hurricane symbol there. To the upper left of it is a gray square. That is actually a QR code that you can scan with your phone. And what will pull up is something that looks like this, but what you need to know is that address that is listed should match the address of the home of the person. And it will tell you what level, if it's gold, silver, or roof, and the address listed. You can also call IBHS, and the phone number is on the screen. And you can also use their contact form, fortifiedhome.org/contact, and just put in the message that you're trying to verify that a home is actually, fortified. However, as State Farm agents, you can also create your own account. State Farm is a member of IBHS, so this is something that you can do as State Farm agents. So you're going to choose a username, first name, last name, and email. Email is important here. You must use your company email. You can't use any other email that you use to give to customers. It's got to be your State Farm email. It takes 24 to 48 hours to get approved, but then you can go in yourself and look up an address. So you're going to put the street number and the street name. And my only advice here is if somebody lives on Main Street, you just have to put Main. Then you don't have to guess. Did they put ST? Did they spell out street? Is it ST with a dot at the end or the period at the end? Just put Main. It'll take that. It'll look for everything with that, like 1, 2, 3, 4 Main Street. If you put 1, 2, 3, 4 Main and then the city, it'll look for everything that matches that. Okay, one more quiz. We're not going to take a break after this one. We're going to power through the mitigation. Review. So the Fortified Evaluator is absolutely critical to the process of getting designated. Fortified can be used on new and existing homes. It doesn't have to be new. A designation needs to be renewed every 5 years, and that may not seem like much, but people do things like add onto their houses and change their windows and doors, and all of that needs to be verified every 5 years. You can find a list of contacts at smarthomeamerica.org if you want to find evaluators and roofers. So here is that last quiz. True or false? To get a fortified roof, simply contact a roofer who completes the work and issues a designation. True or false? Fortified standards are only applicable to new construction. And true or false, fortified designations last 15 years. So go ahead and answer those. Okay. Man, you guys are fast. So we can end that and share it. Okay, let's go through everything. To get a fortified roof, simply contact a roofer who completes the work and issues the designation. This is false. You need to have a fortified evaluator. They are the only ones who can submit to IBHS for the designation. Fortified standards are only applicable to new construction. This is false. As we've seen, people can put a fortified roof on an existing home. Fortified designations last 15 years. This is false. They only last 5, and that may seem like it's short, but people do things to their house, people make changes to their house, and it needs to be, you know, the first 5, it's probably good, but after that, it just varies a lot what kind of weather's been through that area. Okay, so let's move on very quickly to mitigation incentives. So one of the first things that I want to tell you that you can tell your homeowners is having a fortified designation increases a home value by nearly 7%. There was a study done by the University of Alabama, Auburn, and the University of Mississippi that showed that this is absolutely the case. Now, this study has been redone. It's not published yet, so I don't have the information up there. This is actually one of the things I believe that is available on your resources. So there is a study that shows this information. You can give it to appraisers and they can have it, and they can justify increasing the value of the home. So what about Louisiana? What mitigation incentives does Louisiana have? Well, there's the list there. We're going to go through them one by one. So this is a 2021. This is going to take place July 1st. Building or retrofitting to the fortified home or fortified commercial standards will qualify for a reduced rate or discount. As of July 1st, all admitted carriers are required by the state of Alabama to submit their discounts. So it's a little bit in flux right now, okay? Homeowners receiving mitigation credits or insurance discounts may continue to receive their discounts as long as they continue to meet the requirements. Insurance discounts are also available for meeting the Louisiana State Uniform Building Code. So if a house is retrofitted to the code, then you can get a discount that way as well. So if you go to the online services for insurance, there are mitigation incentives. So this number, it has HOMA, the average savings is $1,039. That is, we looked at the base rate for HOMA and averaged it, and then the wind mitigation rate and averaged it. Because fortified is going to be like a wind mitigation, especially fortified roof. So there is also a tax deduction that you can take, and let's go into that a little bit more. So you have mitigation insurance credits. So if you build or retrofit a structure to comply with the state uniform construction code, or you install mitigation improvements that are demonstrated to reduce the amount of loss from windstorm or hurricane, which fortified does, okay, then you can have a tax credit up to $5,000. It must be 50% of the cost paid or incurred for the retrofit. So you can only get 50% back. So to get that full $5,000, $10,000 needs to be paid. So and it's no more than $5,000. So if you paid $20,000, like let's say upgrade to silver, you're only still going to get $5,000 of that. The key here is to protect your book of business. So if you can give somebody a better rate, their house is now worth more because it's fortified, you can give them a better rate. Now they can actually afford to be truly adequately insured, and they might be able to afford other insurance that we all know your clients need, like life insurance. Insuring recreational vehicles, seasonal properties, and all those kinds of things. Having adequate insurance on all of those things, and flood insurance is absolutely vital. And just as a little offshoot, over 20% of flood insurance claims come from outside high-risk areas. It's not just people in flood zones that flood. We all live this. We know it very well. So flood insurance is also critical for a lot of your clients. So what are those benefits to insurers? You can write better risks. I mean, that's the bottom line, is you write better risks. You know that fortified properties have been professionally verified and audited by IBHS. And this all has the potential to lower your costs. So we are done, folks. We made it. It is 12 o'clock. I do have a couple of resource slides I'm going to go through real quickly, but we've covered the principles, processes, and terminology of resilient construction, the options and consumer benefits of beyond code construction, how this increases the insurability of properties, the different levels of the Fortified Home Program, and how this all lessens errors and emissions exposure. So we're taking that mitigation that always happens at the end, we're moving it to the front, that sunny day mitigation, and making things more resilient for you, for your clients, and for your entire community. So one resource I would like to point you to is our Don't Goof sites. These are run by Smart Home America. We have Don't Goof Floodproof and Don't Goof Re-Roof. Don't Goof Re-Roof has a lot of information about fortified roof, and it also has the directory for fortified roofers. And Don't Goof Floodproof walks homeowners and communities through flood insurance and how to get flood insurance and how to protect themselves. I do have one final poll. If you could please take a moment to answer. Tell us how likely it is you would recommend Smart Home America to a friend or colleague. If you have other comments, please feel free to put them in the chat. And I just want to say I very much appreciate all of your time and sitting through these 2 hours. I'm going to put on the last slide here so you have my contact information. I have been emailing people. If you have any follow-up questions, please do contact me, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for your time.